Welcome to Bashy's Corner. Ethnic minorities in Denmark, people like myself, beautiful but brown. We are 6% of the total Danish population, which is 5.6 million. But when you read newspaper, look at the social media, watch television, and look at different issues being discussed in Danish society, it seems that ethnic minorities have taken over Denmark in every field. This perception actually is based on descriptions from politicians and the media, while we are a very small minority in minority. Similarly, often the focus is on finding differences between native Danes and ethnic minorities instead of looking at similarities and see as human beings, as people who love human rights, people who love their families, we are all the same. However, my guest today did exactly that. He didn't look at the differences, which everybody is so much fond of. He looked at how ethnic minorities live their life and how they are very similar to native Danes. He eliminated the similarities by comparing the majority of ethnic minorities with the majority of native Danes and looked at the whole situation, not the segments, the whole situation in the Danish society. So who is my guest? His name is Hjarn W. Zernichow Borberg. It's very difficult, but I hope I managed this. He's a graduate in economics, an external lecturer at the Copenhagen University's Department of Economics, and he has been. He's also section chief of Capital Region. He has previously worked for Danish Bank, Ministry of Education, Council of Ministers, and the Danish Immigration Officer. Very cosmopolitan background.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And I'm really impressed. I hope that I had all these titles on my CV. Welcome to Bashy's Corner, Hjarn.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm really happy and pleased. Over the years, I have read many books, many surveys. I have been doing all what I can. Look at the way media presents ethnic minorities. Most of them, not all, but most of them, they present ethnic minorities as a burden, who are committing huge number of crimes. But in your book, you conclude that native Danes and minorities are very similar. You also say that this narrative, which I just mentioned and which you also talk about, is very false, and we should not fall prey to that kind of narrative. So the question is, and I hope you don't mind, isn't it a little bit being naive saying that Danes who have a history of 1,000 years and ethnic minorities who come from, jeg vil ikke kalde det jordhuller, but how can we compare them?
Oh, well, it's very easy to do so. I think that the Danish debate is wrong and making this what I call a false storytelling about what I in my book call New Danes,
yes.
If it is directly translated.
Sure.
And I think that the reason why we're having this sort of debate in Denmark is that people are always looking at these differences between people. And that means that if you're normally making this image or picture that you're having two white papers, and the one is representing the New Danes and the other one is representing the Danes.
Okay.
You might have a dot on one paper and a dot on the other paper, and the dot on the New Danes paper is perhaps twice as big as the dot on the Danish paper. And what will be focusing in the debate in Denmark will be these differences between the dot that is a little bit bigger than the other dot, instead of comparing the entire paper with the other entire paper. What are you looking at? Two white papers with each one dot, or are you comparing the two dots with each other?
So this book, New Dansk, what inspired you to write this wonderful book? I have read it, and I tell you, it should be translated in English, German, all the languages, and distributed.
Thank you so much.
Really, it's a wonderful book. What inspired you?
Two things. I'm a very lucky person I know a lot of New Danes. I have colleagues, I have students, I have my neighbors, I have my children's friends are coming from all over the world. And then I could see at all these lovely people, are they part of are they role models and a minority within the New Danes, or should it be the other fact that they are just among a lot of people that are just like everybody else in Denmark. So that was the one reason I thought that it might be a good idea to look at it from that perspective. On the other side, I've also been working with statistics throughout a lot of years, and I've been in the central administration for a lot of years. I know a lot of the same reports as you probably have been reading.
Yes.
And what I was always what I thought was very strange, that it was always this focusing on these differences. You might have written a huge report with a lot of similar key indicators, but nobody noticed that. It was where there was something that was different. And so I thought that, well, it might be a good idea to have try to set up an overall statistical view on how similar, in fact, that New Danes and Danes are.
You have used a lot of statistic in that,
Absolutely.
And when you compare everything, how long time it took to collect all the data?
In fact, it didn't take that long time.
Okay.
But
it was there already.
Yes, but you can see that, so to speak, that I've been working with it for a lot of years, and the only fault that I have made that I didn't publish it before. Because I have been knowing this.
You should have done that long time ago.
Yes, I should have done that for a long time ago. Unfortunately, I didn't. But anyway, I have done it now, and I'm very satisfied about the results.
Have you sent this book to people like Inger Støjberg, or Bertel Haarder, or Lars Løkke, or maybe people from, because this message must be taken on board by those people who make decisions?
Yes, I think so. No, I have not. We have been sending it to most of the media and a lot of different organizations, but I'm not sure that we have posted some for the parliament or for the Minister of Education. I will take your recommendation to me. Yes, okay. Consider them. Yes, of course.
Now, you claim that actually in 9 out of 10 cases,
yes,
we are very similar to each other.
Yeah.
Please explain to me how.
Yes, it's simple in that way that I've been looking at almost 100 and, well, about 50 different key indicators.
Okay.
And normally when you are having discussion in Denmark and then you're looking at these dots, you might see at the figures that there is some difference, but without comparing with the Danes. But when you compare with the same figures for the Danes or the same data
in the
same area, you will see that it's very much similar. And that means that there might be, of course, sometimes be perhaps a difference of 20% into some areas, but in other areas there's perhaps only a difference between 1 or 2%, which means on average 9 out of 10 of us are very much similar concerning most of the most of the subjects that I have been writing about in my book.
In your book and in your talk, you use the word New Danes.
Yes.
And New Danes, okay. While I myself, the Danish society and ministers, they use many different terminology. I use the term ethnic minorities. Why do you insist on calling those people New Danes?
I think there might be 2 reasons.
Okay.
The first reason is that I thought it was the most simple form to do it. Because normally you will use the word that this is immigrants from non-Western countries.
Non-Western cultural background.
Yeah, and that is very long to use every time. So I thought that it might be better and a shortcut to use New Danes. That was the one reason. And the other one is that I think that New Danes is a little bit more including, that you're not telling people that they're not a part of the society, but they are a part of the society. And if it was up to me, I wouldn't even have written this book, because I think that you should look at each person as the person that you are in front of, instead of looking at them with all your prejudices based on some false storytelling about immigrants in Denmark.
Okay. So let's be now a little bit more specific, because philosophically we can discuss it forever.
Absolutely.
So I want to be more specific. It is proven that minorities commit more crimes than the native Danes.
Yes.
And you say it's almost not the same, or not true. Why you say that when all the surveys and figures say that minorities are more criminal?
That is also because you are focusing now on the two dots that I told you about before.
Yes.
And I know the figures, I know them very well. There might be a dot on 1% on the Danish side, and you have perhaps a dot on 3% on the other side. But instead of comparing these two figures, you should be comparing the 99% of the Danish that are not criminals and the 97% of the immigrants or new Danes that are not criminal, instead of always comparing these two dots. It's a question of focusing on something.
Where you focus. Rockwool Foundation, you know that.
Yes,
they have also done a lot of work on this area.
Yeah.
Their report shows that 50% of non-Western descendants are convicted of crime compared to Danes. Can you deny that?
No, that's true, but that's because they're comparing the little dot, a very little dot, with a little dot that is a little bit bigger than the other dot.
Okay.
So you're still comparing two dots that are not interesting in my book, because I like to look at the similarities and the majority of new Danes and Danes. So I'm comparing the 97% with the 99%.
What do they do? So when you say 99% Danes are law-abiding and 97% ethnic minorities are also law-abiding.
Absolutely.
So how do you come to that conclusion?
It's just looking at the figures. Because if you're looking at it, you can see that there's just 1% that are criminals, which means that 99% are.
Do you define somehow criminality in such a certain way?
Yes, I do it in an official way. I do it in the same way that they're using in the Ministry of Integration, which means that you're not looking at traffic if you are having
violations,
yes, and etc. Your only violation if you have weapons, if you are dealing with drugs and etc. Then you are within the criminal rates.
You mean the hard crime?
No, well, the only thing that I have not been including is if you are having for something in the traffic.
Of course, A lot of crimes are.
If you are driving too fast or something like that.
Over the red line.
I've been looking on the other side of that, because I don't think that is something to do with criminality in the way that people, when they're talking about crimes, are what they are fearing that might happen to them. Okay. So I'm looking.
So let me understand it clearly. If you filter all those non-important issues, then the ratio of criminality among the Danes and the ethnic minorities is quite close.
Yes, and it's very low.
Very low.
Yeah.
So we Danes and we ethnic minorities are very law-abiding.
Yes, absolutely.
Hurrah for that. Now, another issue which your book talks a lot, and also in Danish society they talk a lot, is that ethnic minority parents, they don't care for their children football, or they don't care to go to the parents meeting. Is it true?
No, absolutely not. They are just as Danish parents are. I think that they are very similar. They would like to go to the school meetings. They like the children to have success in school, and they would love to have a child that can pass the exams at the high school or at the university. I think that they are very similar to Danish parents.
Okay. Another issue I would like you to shed some light. It is about religion. Media, politicians, they all say all these people who come from other countries, especially the Muslims, that they are fanatic and, they...
Yes, I know. Unfortunately, they are telling us that. Yes.
Oh, okay. What does your research tell us?
Well,
are they sitting in the mosque, all of them?
No, absolutely not. It's,
okay.
In fact, it's completely different.
Oh.
Most of people, even that I think it's okay to go to the mosque or go to the church, I think have no problem with that. But in fact, that most people in Denmark are member of the state church. Where absolutely a huge majority of the Muslims are not member of any sort of mosque organizations. Yeah. So that in that way they are very different. But if you're looking at religious education, or if you are looking at participating in different sort of meetings or meetings, they are very much similar.
I understand
none of the groups are doing it.
That about 86% people, they're not religious at all.
No.
Okay. Nice to know, because I shouldn't say that, but I agree a lot of things you're telling, because that is my own research also, but And then we come to another point which I have opposed all my life, this word ghetto, because I have lived in America and in London, and I know what ghetto means, So, is it true that ethnic minorities, they don't want to mix with people, or they want to live in ghettos on purpose?
No, absolutely not. First of all, in fact, from my own, I can only talk for myself.
Yes.
I don't like that word.
Thank you.
Ghettos is something quite different for me. It is a place where people are forced to be and not asked to.
Like in Venice, when the Jews were put in one
just
and the guards outside,
But if we are not looking at that part and just looking at the other part, that how many people are living within these certain areas, it is only about 10% of the immigrants or new Danes that are living there, which means that 90% is not living in these certain areas.
Yeah.
And it is about 100% of the Danish that are not living there. But again, we are very similar. 9 out of 10 is very like each other.
And they want to have a nice life.
Yes, of course.
Okay. How about cohabitation and relationship with man and women, especially divorce? I was amazed when I read that.
Yes, that's true. Me too.
Yeah. So what is the divorce rate among Danes and among ethnic minorities?
Well, in fact, that on both sides, perhaps it is too high, some will say, but again, it is very similar within the two groups, that too many are divorced.
But the minorities don't talk about that, the Danes talk about that.
Yes, that's the difference.
That could be.
Yes, that's the difference.
Okay, what about the gender equality? I mean, the Muslims, they oppress their women,
Yes, the prejudices might tell you that. But in fact, if you're looking at it from different sides, you can see that they are having a common economy in the family, and that in most families, also in Danish families, it is still the wife that are concerned about the family life, preparing the food, buying the things that should be used, and etc. And in that way, nor the Danish men or the immigrants men should be well. There might be a little bit more of gender politics in that sense.
Okay. What about democracy and co-citizenship? Because we hear again, that minorities come from those countries, they are not democratic, and when they come here, they don't respect democracy. Is it true?
No, absolutely not. Again, most people in Denmark, that might be Danish, they might be not Danish, or just new Danes, they think that it is a very important part to be a part of the society. Yeah. But there's one difference there, and that is how to participate in the local elections.
Yes. Yeah, that we have been complaining a lot. Yeah. What about abortions? Because I was shocked to hear that ethnic minority women have more abortions?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Okay. So we should tell the people that
perhaps you should have some more, some sort of education with
about
birth control.
Birth control. Yeah. Okay. And then comes, with abortion, then comes again the approach to sex, you know.
Yes.
I mean, minorities, they think sex is only for the marriage. When you're in the marriage, you should have sex. What about the younger generation? Do they think like that, in that way?
I have not very much about in my book, but as I can see, they are very much alike each other. Also there we are very similar, I think.
They just don't talk about it.
They don't talk about it. Do it, but don't talk about it.
Okay. And then I come to another issue which is very burning, is about women's shelters, you know.
Yes.
That they say that if you go to women's shelter, 50% of the population is again ethnic minorities.
Yes, that's right.
How do you explain that?
Well, there's what we call a shadow numbers, because it is more due to what we can call it, the administration, that the staff at this women shelters, they are making this priority of the ethnic women, because they do not necessarily have this network to use personal network to save themselves another place, which means that they will be prioritized into to have protection into a women shelter. But if you're looking at the emergency departments at the hospitals, you can see that unfortunately the same share of Danish women and New Danish women, they are beaten by their husbands or about their boyfriends.
Then the big question comes,
but still a very low figure.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah.
But the big question is, why does Danish society is focusing on only negative things? Why?
Yes.
Academics, politicians, media.
Yes. I think that the media are doing it because it's a part of what I would call their raison d'être. They think that they should only tell things that are very negative.
And people want to hear about negativity.
Yes, they want to hear about terror, they want to hear about violence and crimes and everything that is terrible. I think that is just a part of being in the media as a journalist. And on the other side, I think that it is in nature, because we're always looking, if you're looking into calculation, you're always looking at if you're taking that number from this number and calculating it, what is the difference? So I think it is also in our nature that we're always looking at these differences. If you're looking to a lot of data sets, you will always try to see, is there something here that is different?
Is there any funding involved in that?
And then we are forgetting to look at the huge number of data showing that there are very much similarities.
Do you think that maybe, I say maybe,
yes,
money is involved, or it's a big, in '86 I called it integration industry, you know?
I use the same word.
You use the same word?
Yes,
well, I'm happy to hear that. So maybe there are a lot of people who are actually working with these minorities, their livelihood is involved in that. Could it be that there is a reason to put
I think that one reason might be that this is a way of, if you can sell newspapers by telling negative stories, if you can have funding for your research by telling negative stories.
And the government want to listen to those negative stories.
Yes, perhaps. And at least they are saying that, well, here we have a problem. So now we must do something, and we will finance the activities or what it might be.
Then somebody, I'm sure the Danish People Party will call you politically incorrect person.
Perhaps. I don't see myself as politically correct, because I'm just telling a true story about the majority of people in Denmark, whatever they might be, ethnic minorities, or they might be Danish natives.
Now we have talked with numbers. Let's come back to philosophical issues in the last of our. What do you think would be the consequences of this false narrative?
The consequences is, unfortunately, that we will be more what I would call mistrusted between the two groups. Because the conflict, it might be, and why? Because I'm very lucky. I know a lot of people from all over the world. But if you're just reading about in the headlines are reading all these negative stories about people coming to Denmark, and you think that everybody is living in a ghetto, they don't want to participate in the society, their children are criminals, they don't want they want to perhaps to make violence to your friends,
and they don't want to integrate,
and they're not integrated, and you're just looking at all these headlines. What do you think about people, and you don't know any? Well, then you'll be scared and think, hey, what is happening to Denmark? Now we are having a lot of people and they don't want to be a part of the Danish society. So that will be mistrust, and perhaps there will be a conflict.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but unfortunately it might be a consequence of it.
Okay, so what is your advice to the Danish politicians?
First of all, I think it's okay to have a debate. I have no problem in that, but I'm always asking for a balance in the debate and to set up the proportions in the debate.
Okay.
If you are looking at a fascist that might be in a mosque in Aarhus, just to take an example, well, it's okay to talk about that, but don't blame anybody else, that might be you, for there is a person in Aarhus that might be a fascist.
Okay.
Blaming him for what he's
individual.
saying, the individual, instead of blaming everybody else. And that's what I think is wrong about it, that you are having a debate always based on a very small minority within the immigrants, but they're talking in the debate as it was the majority.
Yes.
And that is what's wrong about
The situation is so bad, Hjarn, in Europe, that United Nations now has criticized the European far-right politician. They said, you are creating a problem with your rhetoric. Don't do that. Another thing...
And I agree.
Me too. Besides politician, there's a huge number of Danish People Party, which 21% votes, right-wing parties like Venstre and others, you know. If Danish people are listening to you, what would you say to them, to the people? Forget about the politician and the media, to the people.
First of all, I think you should meet people with an open mind. Don't look at the headlines. Don't move away all your prejudices, and think that most people you are meeting are just like yourself.
Wow. Well, I have a final message on your behalf. You say, the fact is that we have a debate form and approach to other people which is characterized by mistrust. Those who know of functioning New Dane may be thinking, here is a role model, but it is a lie. Not because people don't have to be model, but because the majority are the role models.
That's right.
Thank you very, very much for this lovely talk, and I hope that our viewers, the politician, the media, whoever is interested, please read this fantastic book. You will learn a lot. Until next time, take good care of yourself.